Republicans have power, what are they going to do with it? Congresswoman Michele Bachmann joins us live here in Washington. Good evening, Congresswoman.
Hi, Greta. Thanks. Nice to be with you.
Nice to see you. Before we get to the issue of the Republican takeover of the House, the big buzz in Washington is, are you going to run for president in 2012?
I think that came up because I'm planning to do a series of speeches down in Iowa. And that's my home state. I was born in Iowa, but I'm planning to go down there and talk about why we need to make sure that we repeal President Obama in 2012, just like today we had to repeal the Speaker Pelosi today in the House.
All right, I know why you're going to Iowa. Now let me go back to my question. Are you going to run in 2012?
Well, I am not focused on my own personal ambitions. What I am focused on very clearly is to make sure that we cannot continue to go down the road we do. I brought one chart that I want to share with you. This is the debt that was accumulated under President Bush, all of these red lines. This is just 2 years under President Obama. That's what I'm nervous about, and that's why I'm very committed to doing whatever I can to make sure that we don't have a second term for President Obama. So I'm going to add my voice to that conversation in the next 2 years.
One last question on this. What would go? I know that you haven't said no. You haven't said yes, but you haven't said no. What are your considerations? What would convince you that maybe you should run for president, and what would discourage you?
Well, I just think that's the wrong question to ask for the next year. I think the next year shouldn't be about necessarily who is the personality. That's why it's not about my personal ambition, but it is about making sure that people know what the issues are, what the principles are, because I think a year from now, I mean, can you imagine 2 years of speculating about who the nominee will be?
That's what we do. I mean, someone's going to announce in the next couple of weeks, probably.
That is fatiguing. It is boring. I think what we need to do is make sure that we understand this is very serious business, and I am committed to making sure that this will not be our future, because the debt ceiling is a huge issue, and we're going to be looking at that very shortly, and cannot continue to make those decisions. That's why I want to make speeches about this issue, because people in my district are very, very concerned about this level of debt and the spending accumulation. We have to be very serious about it, and we cannot afford a second term for Barack Obama.
Okay, so I'll drop that question. Let me move on to the debt ceiling, which you raised. That's going to be brought up. Are you going to vote for raising the debt ceiling or not?
I'm voting against raising the debt ceiling.
Why?
I brought another chart. Let me show you why. Okay. It's because this is what we've been doing. This is under President Bush. We've been raising the debt ceiling. It's like if your viewers spend their credit card, and the credit card limit just goes up higher and higher and higher. That's what we're doing on the debt ceiling. This is under President Obama. This is our future under President Obama. If we continue to go down this road, we can't just have a knee-jerk response where we just raise the debt ceiling. We actually have to have cuts. I had my staff put together cuts today. We came up with about $450 billion in cuts, and I think for all of my colleagues, whether it's Senate or House, Republican or Democrat, we've got to put our green eye shades on, and I encourage every member to have their staff actually go to cuts, and I will tell you quite clearly they're painful. They're not easy. We've got to do this, though.
And if we don't do the cuts, and if the debt ceiling isn't raised, what happens?
It's a very unhappy scenario to go forward, and I don't want us to go down that road. It doesn't necessarily mean government shuts down, but it does mean that our credit rating could be hurt. I don't want to go to that direction, but I'm also not seeing people coming up with actual cuts that we need to make. For the next 2 months, our discussion can't be will we or won't we raise the debt ceiling. It needs to be get down to business and actually make cuts, rather than raise the ceiling once again, because we are kicking down the can down the road. And right now, when you look at our debt to GDP ratio, what that means basically is how much of everything that's consumed in the United States is government debt that we're creating. We're at a scary level. We're just a couple years behind Greece, so to speak, and so we need to make sure that we're not contributing to that problem. That's what these charts show, that we are going the way of Greece and Ireland, and I don't know anyone in your viewing audience that wants to do that. I certainly don't. So we need to change our equation.
Congresswoman, thank you very much, and when you are inclined to answer that question, love to have you back, and it's always nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.